Hi, I'm Allie Zendrian, Editor-in-Chief of Brand News, and this is the Financial Services News You Might Have Missed podcast. This is where I find news gems that might not have gotten their full chance to sparkle, and I dust them off a little bit. I'm joined by my trusted co-host, and more importantly, my trusted financial advisor, Brandon Galisi of Galisi Financial. Brandon, how's your week been?
The week has been good, and for those watching, can see I'm in a different background today. Not too far away, but on the back patio, we have some family in town, so currently the home office is being used. So that's why we're outside today. But it's beautiful, sunny, and right now about 70 degrees here in California. And then the week has been great. Played some flag football, which was a lot of fun, and there were some other good business items strewn in there as well. But what about you? How are things going in your world?
So people might have noticed that we didn't have an episode last week, and I think this was among the first times that I called an audible and said, we are not doing it this week. So whether it was from what I'm calling now the garage of doom, but I think mostly because I'm trying to not have to clean my garage, or whether it was a pedicure, I somehow got an infection that took over my foot and my lower leg to the point that I had to go to the hospital to get IV antibiotics for 2 days last week. Good times. I had some time to reflect while I was sitting there with an IV. I did have a nice view for whatever that's worth, but I mean, sitting on an island would have been much nicer than a hospital room. But on the mend and doing much better, thankfully. So
Yeah, no, very glad to hear that. You texted me last week, and I was like, well, yes, of course, we need to call the audible today, but just seemed like that we were talking pre-show and just came out of nowhere. You didn't have some massive gash or anything. You were just doing daily life, and then all of a sudden it's not good, and you had to get some help. I'm glad you're feeling better, though.
Thank you. Yes, all good. So actually this week we have two themes. The first one is growth. And with that, our first piece of news is from AtoZ Communications client VastAdvisor, which announced its version 1.20 this week. This marks a significant step in VastAdvisor's mission to bridge the persistent gap between what wealth firms know about their clients and what their marketing actually does with that knowledge. So with VastAdvisor's Memory Palace, which by the way, super cool name, advisors no longer need to re-explain their book of business at the start of every session. The platform already knows who the high value prospects are, which campaigns are active, what the firm's niches look like, and basically where things stand in the pipeline. So a lot of embedded knowledge in there already without you having to go in every time and refresh as if it's brand new. Also, VastAdvisor's campaign themes in this version are AI-generated positioning frameworks derived directly from each firm's ideal client profiles, which includes their niche, life stage, behavioral signals, and psychographic details advisors have refined over years of practice. And so love all those things coming together and creating more of a holistic marketing package. But as the advisor yourself, what did you think of all that?
Well, first, I agree with you. Memory Palace, really cool name. And along the same lines, I feel like I'm a broken record on this podcast anytime that we're talking about AI, specifically using the word context. And it was cool to see VastAdvisor use the word contextual memory, really referring to their memory palace. And even in all the valuable things that you were just sharing, Allie, almost all of it really does come back to that, where you're not trying to research how many grandkids does this particular client have, or what hobby did this, or where did this client say they were getting ready to take a trip to, which again, as humans, we want to remember as much as possible. But if we're able to have an easy system where we can track those things, and I can remember, oh, Allie told me she was going somewhere, but maybe for whatever reason, I had a bunch of meetings that week and I knew you were going somewhere, but I couldn't remember where was. Being able to have this level of context, I think, is helpful. And then it's just going to help make quicker decisions, and in the marketing sense, reach out to the right people more at the right time versus I feel like oftentimes marketing efforts can potentially feel like you're just throwing a bunch of stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks. So being able to have that context and everything like that, I think is going to be a huge help.
Yeah, absolutely. To your point, I think it's great that not having to start fresh every single time, but I think also having that embedded learning in there where so all the marketing is built on your ideal client profiles anyway. So I feel like otherwise, look, as professionals, and granted I do PR, I don't do marketing, but we're guessing at, I think ideal client profile is 35 and does this and loves tennis. And so therefore I think that this will work. Instead of having to take that time and the memory and then having to think about it and just it being like, okay, ideal client profile, then we do this and then we do that. It streamlines so much more, I can imagine.
Absolutely. And you're able to personalize things a bit more too, where you can scale your marketing in a way where it's not just the same email goes out to every single client. I'm sure it's going to be smart to have some level of templates and what are you ultimately trying to accomplish, maybe similar CTAs, but you can add in there specifically things that you talked about. So that's even something that I've been doing in a campaign, trying to send follow-up emails to people that have either ghosted or just haven't heard from in quite some time. And instead of just saying, hey, Allie, would you like to connect again? It's, hey, Allie, I remember we talked about education funding and retirement planning, or again, whatever specific priorities they had at the time. Hey, just wanted to see if that was still a priority. If you'd like to connect, great. If not, no worries at all. I can reach back out in 3 months. Something very simple, but being able to have the context to share the personalized info makes it, because it is me actually sending the email, feel a bit more relevant versus just, hey, we talked at this point. Would you like to talk again? It's like, well, you might not even remember what we talked about or what was important, because it could have been forever ago. So again, I think this memory palace, this contextual memory is huge when it comes to AI.
Yeah. So let's see what this memory palace does. I feel like it's conjuring up like Disney Palace.
Yeah, absolutely.
Our second piece of news is from AtoZ Communications client Asset Map. The firm launched its Growth Studio, which is Asset Map's own subscription marketing service built for advisors who want a systematic way to attract the clients who are already ready for Asset Map experiences. Additionally, the firm announced its new Growth Partners program, which includes 4 partners to start, which are Possibility, Anisova, Wealth Reach, and Banrian Capital Management. So 3 of those in particular really focus more in the marketing area of things. And then Banrian is related to alts. So I really appreciated about this, with the Growth Studio, that there being some kind of subscription usage where a lot of smaller advisors, it's very difficult. And you feel like, look, for me to pay $10,000 a month for marketing, I could do a bajillion other things that I can justify better than just do my marketing. So being able to have that kind of access, I think, is great. And then also with the growth partners, getting to leverage these kind of solutions so that you can move further on, and that they're in key areas that it would be lovely to add something like alts to your practice, but that would cost a lot of money. So this being something that's a little bit more tenable, I think is great. But would love to get your thoughts on that.
Love the word access there. I think that's really important, where you've got the access, and then also you're already trusting Asset Map. They're pre-vetting these companies too. So it's a twofer. You get access to things that maybe you don't, companies you wouldn't have access to your point, Allie. But then 2, you know that they're going to be trusted companies because Asset Map has given them the stamp of approval, and they're not, because any advisor listening to this podcast, and I'm sure you get these too, but on LinkedIn, it's all this spammy, scammy, I'll get you 15 to 25 qualified appointments per week, and just insane stuff that you absolutely do not believe. And in those cases, those are a little more obvious that you probably don't have to spend much time vetting, but there are a lot of bad actors out there, and people will be claiming all these different things. So if Asset Map is able to vet these already on behalf of advisors, and if Asset Map trusts them, that's their reputation on the line too, means that they're a good company and they've done their homework. So I think it can save advisors time in addition to the really important accessibility piece.
You're totally right. So that vouching for, because I can imagine, so again, not being a financial advisor myself, but you've got a plethora. If you look at the Kitsis map, it just seems like almost too many different options to think about. And so if you're trying to evaluate, do I do this, do that, do I do the other thing? Well, you probably could have seen like 3 clients in the amount of time that it took you to even think about what you wanted to do, let alone do it. So the fact that now you've got somebody who's saying like, no, actually, this is really a viable solution and might be worthwhile for you, check that one out. A significant time savings, I would think.
Yeah. Yep, exactly. I think the time savings is going to be really important too. You could be meeting with clients, like you said, or already starting your marketing campaign versus, and I think sometimes it can be a hiding place. Oh, I need to do marketing. And we can probably all agree, yes, that is a good thing. But then, oh, I'm doing marketing, I'm being productive, and it's just researching companies. Now, to a degree, that could be helpful, sure. But if we're so focused on researching, we could just be procrastinating actually doing the marketing. So again, the time savings to your piece is like, do I need to do a bunch of research? Let's do a quick research. Asset Map has already vetted them. Is this firm going to work with my firm too? Yes, it looks like it. Okay, great. Now I can just move on and start actually executing versus spending 3 weeks on just researching marketing companies before doing any actual marketing.
Yeah.
Removes the place to hide a bit, which is good.
It does. Although apparently my office is not a place to hide, because even with a closed door, it doesn't really matter to some people. Mateo. Anyway, but thank you for putting up with that interruption.
Yeah, of course, absolutely. I mean, I've got Perla in the background of mine today. So yes, for those that are watching and not just listening, I've got some extra entertainment today.
Yes, absolutely. So our next trend focuses on AI and its ability to provide advice for investors. So one of the pieces that I found was from JD Power, which found that financially stressed Canadians expect banks to provide guidance but turn to AI for advice, which was the headline that caught my attention in this particular case. The press release said with 52% of Canadians considered financially vulnerable or stressed, financial customers are expecting their bank and credit card issuers to provide financial advice and support that can help alleviate short-term financial pressure and guide long-term financial decisions. And this was according to the JD Power 2026 Canada Financial Health Support and Advice Satisfaction Study. Gosh, that is a mouthful. Also, according to the study, 41% of Canadians used AI to get advice about their personal finances. So what I thought was interesting here is so people leaning on their banks and their credit card issuers, I don't know, the thought hadn't personally crossed my mind, but what did you think of this?
Yeah, I feel like it overall does make sense because a lot of people might not really know what a financial advisor does or a financial planner, or they've got all these different misconceptions, or they've had an awful experience with someone who claimed to be a financial advisor, but they were just a product salesperson. And so like, well, why would I go and get quote unquote financial advice when I can get it from AI, or I already have a relationship with my bank and or credit card company? Although obviously I have some bias in this, of course, but when it comes to financial advice, I wouldn't necessarily think of or recommend a lot of people, oh, just go to your bank for financial advice, because it could potentially be conflict of interest, a lot of kind of wonky business model sometime if we're talking about the investments or even the financial planning, if they're even allowed to do much of the true planning. But when it comes to maybe basic questions, maybe there's some email newsletters. I know that was one of the favorite ways from the article that people wanted to hear from their bank. So I think that level of education, where at least if it's legitimate about, say, something it's as simple as emergency funds. I use Navy Federal Credit Union, and I've seen some decent emails come through with some of this content marketing. That's just good, solid stuff. And back to what we were talking about with Asset Map, and they've already pre-vetted some of these companies. Same thing for, I think, banks, as long as they're being genuine in their marketing. You don't have to wonder, well, is there a huge conflict of interest with this TikTok influencer sharing this advice? No. If you see something from your trusted bank, you're going to be more likely to believe it, and you can filter out other noise and kind of have more of a source of truth, if you will, at least in those email marketing campaigns.
Yeah. And you're right. I mean, so the email marketing, it's not invasive. It is one of those things, look, I have to choose to click on it and open it and whatnot, versus you being in my face and telling me whatever it is that you think that I should learn. But I think it's also interesting. I guess people must have a better relationship with their banks, because to me, it's that place that stores my money and occasionally gives me an overdraft fee, which is quite obnoxious, versus that place that I would think of as, yeah, obviously they manage lots of money heretofore. If I need advice on doing such, I should get it from them. So I guess it's good that people have that level of respect and relationship with those institutions.
Right. And I thought another thing that was really interesting, Allie, was it said 2 in 5 Canadians, so roughly 41%, utilize AI for financial advice, but then 73% act on it. So I was actually more impressed with that second piece, the 73% that are acting on this advice, because we'll talk about this in a bit, teeing up the next. But a lot of times it's not about information. It's about the right information. And then how do you actually act on it? Let's just assume that AI has perfectly given you, it has all the context, it gives you the quote unquote correct advice. There's not one way to do it, but we'll just assume correct here. Well, then if you don't do it, it doesn't matter. Same thing with nutrition. If like, oh, you have the best nutritionist in the world, if you don't follow that plan, or if you don't take action on that, probably nothing is going to change. So the fact that 73% of Canadians are acting on advice, hopefully it's been good advice that's given to them from AI, but I think it's a bit encouraging that they're actually taking next steps, which is good.
Yeah. But so to your point, I mean, even in my own work, on the occasional times that I am using AI, there are times that I notice like, no, actually, really, that's not good. And whether it's because my prompt making was poor or AI just made a mistake or whatever it is, I guess it's interesting to put that level of trust into something when you can't, other than then asking somebody else like, hey, do you think that XYZ is accurate? There's no real way to know.
Yeah, I think at this point, the best way to do it is at least have it cite sources or give a very big why. But again, I think as we'll talk later, we've talked on the podcast before, as the stakes get higher, more money bigger financial decisions, that's typically when you're absolutely going to want a human. But if it's, hey, what are the best high yield savings accounts right now? That's probably one that, I mean, I'm happy to provide my clients recommendations on high yield savings, but I will say that I'm probably not going to be able to go above and beyond much beyond what AI might give because I have access to the same information. So for basic stuff, I think it could be great. And hopefully that's what the people are acting on. When it's getting into more complicated tax planning topics or even investments, unless you're doing a really basic kind of buy and hold index portfolio, I think it'd be really tough to have AI, hey, build me an individual stock portfolio. I would absolutely not trust that.
All right. Well, I'm glad that we're starting to delineate. And as you said, we've got some more AI and trust to talk about. So our last piece of news also caught my eye based on the headline, which was the trust threshold. The majority of U.S. investors use AI to explore, but only 7% say it drove their last major decision. So in this case, the key statistics in this HSBC research press release were that 57% of U.S. affluent investors use AI for financial or investment tasks. That's compared to 73% of people globally. Only 7% of U.S. investors cite AI as the most influential factor in their last investment decision, down from 12% globally. And 59% cite financial professionals or institutions as the source of their last investment idea, as compared to 19% who say that they used AI for that. So I think it's interesting seeing that dichotomy and seeing which way it's swinging. But what did you think of that when you saw it?
I think it was pretty confirming that people are certainly using AI more, but they're hitting pause. They're learning more. I think it's more of streamlining what I would consider the information process, or maybe there's a knowledge gap of, hey, I just want to see how much money might I need to retire. But then they're not going to make a decision based on, oh, well, ChatGPT told me I need $1.379 million. So that's my new target. But maybe it's able to give them some level of ballpark that now they feel a little bit more prepared going into a meeting, even with a financial planner. Or I know for me, it's slightly different than AI, but I'll have clients send me different reels on social media on a particular financial topic, basically asking me, hey, is this legit? A lot of times it's not fully legit. Other times it might be, or I'm able to add a bit more context to their unique situation. So I can see advisors starting to field more questions where clients are researching something. Again, not to fully do it by themselves, but then just to say, hey, I researched this. Could this apply to my situation? And then now they're asking that human to be able to provide, hey, this strategy, let's say it is legit, but here's why it doesn't work for your situation because of X, Y, and Z. And then now they hopefully feel seen, heard, and understood. And now they can get that one off their mind, knowing that, hey, I understand this one and it doesn't make sense for my situation. And I know the why behind it.
Yeah, good point. So you also basically set me up for this next point. So what I was particularly confused about is, one of the other points was that 38% of those surveyed in the US prefer a hybrid approach of AI and advisors. And I was trying to imagine, so obviously the two of us work together. I was trying to imagine how I either then take AI before I talk to you, or I take whatever you said and then plug it into AI. And I guess for whatever reason, and I guess this shows that like my loyalty to you or whatnot, my brain was like, I'm not computing. I don't understand where I would put those two things together versus just, why don't I just call Brandon and like ask him what the answer is? So I don't know, how should people like leverage that in a way that makes sense for them versus, like you said, if you garbage in, garbage out, then it didn't matter that you had two good resources in front of you.
I think also it depends on what the financial planning or what the advisor relationship is too, because a lot of people are going to have an advisor that might almost exclusively focus on the investment side. So maybe the hybrid approach is learning more about how much should I have in my emergency funds, or what are some high level things that I could do to manage my cash flow more efficiently. So if someone's working with an advisor who's less holistic, maybe there is more room for AI to fill in some of those gaps and still maybe confirm with the advisor that this is an appropriate emergency fund or something like that. I think there are certain clients that they're not DIY, but they still like, and I wouldn't say control is the right word, but they want to be extra in the loop, if you will. They want to have an above average understanding, and they get some level of joy from finance and actually researching. And I have a few clients like that. So I could see for those folks, similar to the videos that my clients will sometimes send me to see if it applies to their situation or if it's even legit. Maybe they're researching something on AI and then they want to run it by me to see if that strategy is the same. So that kind of where I see that. But again, I think for a lot of people who are like, I don't want to think about this near as much, that's probably not who wants the hybrid.
Yeah, that's fair. But something that you had said before about understanding the why. So I could see that as being like those kind of people as being the like, no, I really want to drill into this and I want to understand. And it's not just because Brandon told me that's not a good idea. It's Brandon told me that that's not a good idea because it's going to put me in the poorhouse sooner than I want to be. So yeah, I could understand that those would be maybe the particular kind of people versus the like, look, I outsource my financial life. Like, so long as you're doing good, we're good.
Yeah, I think that's it. So I think there's going to be a certain type of client that might appreciate this a little bit more. But I think for a lot of people, it's more of a, hey, I'd rather my advisor come up to me be more proactive with these ideas versus, because the opposite side of this is if you're constantly going to your advisor and they're not very often coming out to you with proactive ideas, well, there's also another question. It's like, well, why is it only one way? Again, not that you shouldn't be able to reach out to your advisor, but it's always feels one way. Also probably another underlying issue.
Yeah, that's a good point. Although I'm trying to imagine, even with somebody who is as proactive as you, if there would be somebody who would sort of, whether they're uber interested or arguably have nothing else to do, or still like peppering you with the, no, really, what about this? I don't know. Hi, Perla.
Yeah, see something. I have a couple that just like to research it, but it never comes across as, why haven't you brought this up? Because I am proactive in other areas. And usually there's a specific reason. It's like, no, this particular strategy doesn't work for you for X, Y, and Z. Maybe even the article they sent is talking about some gray area type of things. Maybe it's a tax strategy that sounds really great, but then it's like, well, did you realize this? Oh, no, I didn't realize you had to do that. The article didn't mention that aspect. So I think it comes back to uber interested, like you said. Like they have somewhat of a passion. Also, they know that they don't know everything and they want to partner with a professional, but they still enjoy it. Right. So again, you're looking at a smaller subset for sure, though.
Yeah. Which, I mean, to me sounds like the ideal client. I would presume that you want people who are more engaged versus the like, nope, I'm just going to sit here. You can tell me all the things and I'm going to absorb, but really they're just going to go out the other ear.
I mean, yourself included, I work with smart people. Sometimes they're more passionate about finance. Sometimes they're less passionate. But a lot of times the basics of, oh, have you considered saving more and spending less? Or have you considered putting money into your 401k? Those really aren't the conversations that we're having. We're having more optimization. It's, hey, I'm already doing good stuff. I'm saving money into my retirement accounts. I've got this emergency fund. I think I might have too much cash. I'm not 100% sure. Can you add a bit of clarity to that? I'm doing good stuff, but is there anything, what do I not know that I should know? Is kind of the question. And I think once you get to a certain level of even expertise in your own field, you start to realize, oh, if I'm not an expert, if I'm an expert in this field and I feel like I still don't know everything, imagine even if I'm passionate about finance, I don't know everything there either. I might have some blind spots, and that ends up being my ideal client because we're talking about optimization at this point and not just, oh yeah, make sure you're taking advantage of your match. Again, they're so far beyond that. They're like, of course we're doing that. So we're spending no time, and we get to spend time on higher level tasks and even higher value tasks. So it makes it a lot more fun.
So anybody who's listening, if this so happens to jive with you, I'm just saying Brandon is right here and obviously lovely because we talk all the time and he cares about whether my leg is okay or not.
Fair. I do, and I'm glad it is okay. Yes. Getting better.
Yes, thank you. But thank you guys, and thank you for putting up with the week off. Looking forward to whatever cool stuff comes up next week.
Yeah, absolutely. This was another fun conversation, Allie, and keep feeling better. Get some rest.
Thank you. Thank you.